everybody, this is Deb with Garden Devotions, and today we're going to talk about Plarn. Plastic yarn, yeah. Now this video is just going to be about the Plarn, so, I wanted to show you how to make Plarn so that you can use it in various projects. It can be used in a lot of projects, like you're using it for crocheting. I don't knit, so I'm not sure. I haven't tested it in knitting, but I don't see why you couldn't knit with it. And you can also do kumihimo with it, which is what I'm going to show you in another video, that you can actually make kumihimo bracelets with this. Kumihimo is a type of Japanese braiding. And if you wonder why my nails are all the weird colors that they are, it's because of my painting Dragon Eyes video. I went to the store and I got 5 new colors, and I just wanted to see how they look. And yeah, they're chipped and everything already, but I put them on one hand just so I could see, because it helps to know like whether the colors are transparent or not. So I wanted to see how they would come out, and then I realized I had to go somewhere, and I thought, oh well, let's just do the other hand. So they're different colors. They actually do match. It's just they match like that. I was being weird. Anyway, so we're gonna make Plarn. And that way, then you can watch my other Plarn videos. This is the introduction to Plarn, I guess. So let's find out how to make it. We're going to end up making these little squares, and we make those from a regular like bag that you would get at a store. So I'm going to take a yellow one just because I think the contrast will be easier for you to see than the white maybe. So these types of bags, this is from Dollar General. And this one is from like Joann Fabrics, or I don't know. The various places have different colored bags. And now when I go into stores, I kind of pay attention to what color bags they are. And so it's kind of weird, I know. And they look at me strange when they say, do you want me to double bag it? And I usually say yes, just because I want the bags of that color. But anyway, there are various different kinds, and they're all different thicknesses too. And that's an important thing to remember, because some are thinner than others. This particular bag is, kind of medium. How thick the plastic is will make a difference in how you cut it a little bit, because you want it thicker if the bag is a little thinner. You want the strips thicker, because that way it'll give you a little more strength when you're doing it. Now, these bags are called t-shirt bags, and I don't know, that's just the way they call them. I'm sure there's some similarity to a t-shirt to them, but I don't know what they are. So, a t-shirt bag, the way that you cut it is that you have to put it all out nice and neat. And you want to try not to have any holes in it, but I see that I have a little hole right there. So it shouldn't be too much of a problem, but I'll just have to remember that probably the slip with that in it is going to be a little weak, and I'll have to be careful with that. Now, you'll also notice that when you look at how they're designed, they come down and they go up like this. So when we do the cutting, what we're going to do is we're making these circles, these round strips. And I'll show you why that is, because they're easy to connect is part of the reason on that. And I'll show you how to connect them in just a minute. But when we're doing this, we need to remember that as we cut them, we're going to want to make sure that we're cutting below that line. This part up here, we're not going to be using. Okay, and then it has a seam here at the bottom, and we're going to make sure that we cut that off. But if you're like me, this is a long way to cut. If you're going to be cutting like this, you're probably going to go all over creation with it. So I don't cut them this way. What I do is I fold them up. And some people will have asked if the design on them, like whatever the logo is or anything, does it affect your product? Well, yeah, it's going to somewhat. You're going to see this, but it kind of gives a little texture to it, the overall thing. So it's not too bad. You want to make sure it's as flat as possible, and then you try to get the edges as, together as possible, but it's never going to be straight. So, if you are a person who has to have everything perfectly straight, it's just not going to work, guys. Just not going to. and you want to try to get all the air out. And you just keep folding it. I like to fold it so, see, when you fold it like this, I can see that there's a big bunch of not straight, and that's not going to matter. It's just when you're cutting it, you want those enclosed like inside. So I try to fold it so those are inside, and it'll make it easier when I cut. Okay? Now, this is kind of a nice project to do when you're sitting and watching TV. At the very end is the seam. So you want to cut that seam off. You're not going to use that because all it is a seam. I mean, I guess you could tie them together and use them, but it's kind of a pain to do that. Then you're just going to cut them about, that big. Again, it'll depend. If they're really thin, you might want to cut them especially wide, or it's all up to you. I just double them up instead. I try to make them all about the same size. They don't have to be perfect, guys. They really don't. It's not going to affect that much. I mean, I'm sure probably if you're a perfectionist, you might want to measure and cut, but I am not. This is how I do them. And you want to make sure that you don't cut, that you get this all off. It looks to me like maybe I've got some weak places there on that one, but I'll find out when I open it up. Okay, so there we go. We got it all cut. And that gives us these lovely little loops. You just got to make sure you cut them side to side and you get the loops. Okay? That's what you need. Now, if you're doing a kumihimo bracelet, the wonderful thing about this is you can just start with one loop, and if you need more, you just add it on. But if you're doing crocheting or maybe knitting with it, you're going to need a lot of them. And so the way you hook them together, that's why we do them with the loops, because it makes it so easy to hook together. No knots necessary. I mean, you don't have to tie anything. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do one white and one yellow so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. But they aren't static electricity, man. It gets everywhere. And I have a cat that particularly loves these, so I don't know why, but I really have to watch it. She's bored right now and is somewhere else in the house, so I'm taking advantage of the time, and I'm going to try to do this. Okay, so there we have it. You see, I've got the one through the other one. So we've got two loops here, and then you just take the one and pull it through itself, and it makes a nice little knot. Now you want the knot as small as you can get it, but you also don't want to stretch this, because Plarn stretches really easy and it will break, and that's not a good thing. I mean, here's the ending, and that just, you can see what happens to it. It's not cool. So anyway, when you get it to this point, I find it very helpful just to kind of do this until it gets down to where I want it to be. And I can get it even smaller than that, but you have to be really careful. If you are crocheting and you're like me and you make mistakes, this is not easy to frog. Okay, frogging means like to rip it out. Yeah, it's not easy to frog because of the knots. The knots will kind of show. So when you have knots, yeah, you're going to see them, but it's possible. I mean, it is possible to do that. You can also do, kind of variegated yarn, if you want to say it that way, variegated Plarn, just changing the color of the strips, do different strip colors, and you can get that. There are lots of different colors. I never knew until I started this. I really wasn't aware of what color bags were. But like Lowe's and I think Walmart have this kind of gray color. So that's nice. And I have a brother who has red bags. And so he gave me a few of them, and I cut them up into strips. Now his are really nice because they're pretty thick. They just have, you know, more heft to them because he sells like steel targets and things like that. So he needs a little more, you know, bag that's going to hold up a little bit better. But it was really nice that he gave me those and that he had red. So that has helped what I can do. And this is for a red, white, and blue kumihimo round bracelet that I'm going to show you in another video. And then if you get a newspaper, sometimes you have orange, or you can maybe have blue, and that's where I'm getting my blue ones. Now, these are one thing. I mean, those are the easiest to cut up, but you can use these bags. And so here's what I do. It's a little different cutting system because of how these bags are shaped. They're long. They have, here there's no seam, but it's folded over. And so there's really no seam to it. Well, the seam is on the side. But this is also closed over here too. There are two seams on each side. So you need to cut it a little bit differently. And one of the problems you have with these is, first of all, they're very slick. But they are possible. You can do it. The better you can fold it, the more you fold it, the better off you're going to be, because you'll have straighter, you know, it'll make it straighter in the long run because you have a much shorter distance to cut. So that will help. Okay. I mean, you can just cut down this bag, but yeah, it's not going to look pretty. I tried that. Been there, done that. It's just too far to cut and your line is going to be really bad. Now, you want to try your very best to get this lined up and to try to keep the sides, the two long sides, you want to try to keep those as much as you can matching. So it's not going to be perfect. It's just almost impossible to get it perfect. With these, they're very slippery and they are very thin, which means usually when I do them, I like to double up or even triple up on them. Okay, when you get to this point, there's likely some kind of bubble. Well, we're trying to get the sides so we can, you know, we want them pretty even, so we can cut off the sides because that's where our seam is, right? So if you can do it at this stage and cut the seam, they slide around so much, you got to be really careful. There. Okay, so now once the seam is off, where does the air go? Right out the end. Okay. If it's not totally perfect, that's okay. That's okay. But remember, we're folding this direction. We're just trying to fold. Okay, the reason I changed it around is because that flap right there. I want that flap on the inside instead on the outside. It makes it easier when you cut. Remember, this side's not cut yet, the seam. So, there. Okay, now I've got it at this stage. I'm going to cut them off. And it cuts different too. I think my scissors are getting a little dull. Well, they were my only for fabric scissors and then, or only for yarn scissors. But then, yeah, life happened. Okay, this one still has that edge. I'm going to try to cut it off. There may be places that I have to, nope, it all came out good. There. So now we have this one big long piece. The problem with these, if you're going to do crocheting or knitting or some bigger project, is you're going to have to tie these ends together, and that can be kind of tedious. And that's the reason we did these the way we did, because it's a lot faster to put them together. Once you get them done, okay, this one didn't come out, so I can show you what I'm talking about. Okay, once in a while you're going to get this happen, and so all you have to do is just trim them up. You know, boy, these really are not the greatest, but there. It may be longer than that. It may be part of it. You know, it depends on how well you got those sides matched when you trimmed them off. But anyway, so that's what I've got. Now, you'll notice that with these all folded up, they look a lot darker than this, obviously, because this is only one thickness. And so, depending on your project, you know, that could determine how many thicknesses you want. What do you want it that color? Do you want it 2? Because you see there's 2. Or do you want 3 times? Like for my kumihimo bracelet, 3 times. Do I want 4? And with each one, it's going to intensify the color. And the same thing happens with these bags, you know, when you do the same type of thing with them. And by the way, there are actually within the Dollar General, I mean, we've got 3 Dollar Generals in our town. It's crazy because it's like such a small town. Why do we need 3? But I guess we do. I guess a lot of people buy stuff there. And we have a Dollar Tree, so yeah. But, you know, the more you put on there, the more you put, the more intense the color will be. So there's this one Dollar General store in town that the bags are much darker to begin with. So that's kind of interesting. And that can also help if you want to do a little shading. Just keep your eye out for that. I've noticed these plastic bags for the newspaper also, same thing. Some of them are darker blue, some are lighter blue. And, you know, there's just different shades of blue. So that's how you make Plarn. Okay. And like I said, with this one, you have to tie it together, and it works if you just give it a regular knot. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. As long as it holds, you can do that. And there we go. The key, though, is remember, this Plarn is very delicate. So your tension on it has to be very light. And if you're using it for any kind of crocheting or anything like that, be real careful with it. You'll get the feel for it after a while. But if you're new to crocheting, I actually recommend you learn with yarn, regular yarn, and then come back to the Plarn later on. So once you get a bunch of them, if you're doing some project, like I said, a bigger project with crocheting, you really might want to find some way to, you know, something to keep these organized. And so I kind of like these little bobbins, although they don't hold all that much. So if you're going to be doing a big project, you probably will want to think of maybe a paper towel holder or something, the cardboard from it, so you can wrap around that way. But, you know, these little bobbins are really, really nice, especially for kumihimo. And so when I do the kumihimo video, I will show you how it works, so you can keep your Plarn all organized. And there we have it. See, that's 2 strands right there of the long one. And then as you're using them, like with the kumihimo or, well, whatever you're using, they just pull out a little bit at a time and it'll stay where it is. So really nice. They really do help when you're doing things. And you can do any of them on it. You can, you know, put any of these on there. Obviously, don't put it, you don't want to put it this way. Okay, you do want to put it like this because that's how you're going to be using it. So you just put it in there and then wrap it around and snap them closed. So I really do like these. When I first got them with the kumihimo, it was like, why? But then once I started doing like longer strings and things and cords, well, yeah, they're very important if you have longer ones. And I found that especially with these, since I tend to use more than one at a time, like this is a single strand. I wouldn't use that in kumihimo because it's going to be too thin and you're probably going to break it somewhere along the line. So I usually like to do 2 or 3 strands of this at a time. So when I'm doing that, I can wrap both strands together and put them in here. And that way, when I'm pulling them out, I pull out only that. And if I've got, with kumihimo, you usually have 2 different ones you're working with. So, like this would be one, and this would be another. And so you definitely want to have them distinguished, especially if they're the same color. I mean, you want to make sure you get the right thing so you can do it the right way. Okay? So that's what we're dealing with Plarn. Plarn can be very fun. It can be your friend. Now, I still haven't figured out what to do with these. You know, the leftovers, that's the handle part. Although, if you get enough of them, you probably could, you know, tie them together here at the bottom and end up making flowers. You'd have to have several of them, but you can make little flowers out of that. Yeah, so just I like to use as much as I can. There's also some people who melt them down to make beads. So I've never tried that. Yeah, so that's a possibility too. I'm sure there's something you could do with them. There's different stuff. And, you know, the nice thing about Plarn is you can actually melt Plarn, like an item that you make with it. I made a sun hat. And the sun hat, I'll put a picture in. The sun hat had a brim on it, but the brim was really, really floppy because I crocheted it. And so I needed it to be stiffer. So what I did was I took it and I put a cloth over it, and then I ironed it and it melted it together. So it made it stiffer. And if you melt it enough, it'll make a pretty stiff plastic, you know, fairly stiff plastic that you can use that way if you need it. So that gives you some options there too. Like if I took this and I ironed it together, and then you could cut it out and make it into things. Yeah, you could do that too, you know. So there's different stuff you can do. I just like the idea of working with Plarn because it's not something that a lot of people do yet, but it is growing. More and more people are learning to use it. And in my 4-H fair, they have like an open class where people get, you know, people like me who aren't in 4-H get a chance to enter things that they've made. Well, I saw the recycling category, and some lady had a rug that she made out of Plarn. And I thought, well, if she can make a rug, what else can I make? And so I ended up making this little guy. So, yep, he's made of Plarn, all Plarn. The brown is from PetSmart. They have brown bags, but they're very, very thin. So, yeah, you really have to have several things of that. The gray then was from Lowe's, and this color right here is from a supermarket, a local supermarket that I really, really like. And if you want to, and for his head, I didn't want his head to have any red in it because they have like a red logo on their bags. So I picked out just the pieces that didn't have their logo on it. So his head is totally non-red, but I figured, well, you know, he's got like a shirt on. So I put the red in there, but it just comes up naturally. It gives it, you know, a different look, but he's also stuffed with Plarn. So he is totally Plarn, 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 Plarn. Everything on him is Plarn. And so and what is he? I don't know. I was making his ears. I was a little pressed for time. I'd left him until last. I was trying to get all my entries done. And so I didn't do as great a job as I can do, you know. His feet are different sizes. And I really don't know how that happened because I was pretty sure I counted right. But I guess I didn't. And gave him a little tail. You know, it helps him sit up too. But anyway, so that's my little Plarn guy. And I wanted you to see him. There's just a lot of things you can make with Plarn. And, oh, I think did I show you that? There's a kumihimo bracelet. So, Plarn bracelet. Now, the bracelet, the first kumihimo video I'm going to do with Plarn is actually a round bracelet because they're a little bit easier to do than the chevrons. So, I will do that one first, and then I'll do one on the chevrons. So, that's what I've got for you on this video. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.